It all started with what should have been a regular work trip. I'd been on the road plenty of times before, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was how quiet Laura had been when I told her I had to leave for a whole week. She didn't complain, didn't argue, but I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't thrilled. And honestly, I wasn't either. I stood at the door, suitcase in hand, feeling that familiar tug of guilt. Laura was used to me traveling for work, but this time felt different, heavier somehow. She was trying to play it cool, but I could see the hesitation in her eyes. "You sure you'll be okay alone?" I asked, even though I knew the answer. We lived in a quiet neighborhood. No real trouble, no weird neighbors. But still, something didn't sit right with me. Laura forced a smile. "Jake, you worry too much. I'm not a kid. I'll be fine. It's just a week, right?" "Yeah, just a week," I echoed, though the words felt like they hung in the air, too light to be true. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. Her hug felt tighter than usual, like she didn't want to let go. "Just come back in one piece, okay?" I chuckled, trying to ease the tension. You know me, always careful. I pulled back, looking into her eyes. "I'll call you every night. Promise." "You better," she teased, but her voice wavered just a bit. She stood there in the doorway as I got into the car, watching me like she didn't want to break the connection. As I drove away, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror. There she was standing in the doorframe, waving until I turned the corner, and she disappeared from view. Something about the image of her standing there, alone, clung to me. I shook it off. I had a long drive ahead, and I didn't want to start the trip overthinking everything. The day passed like any other, meetings, phone calls, the usual grind. But later, when I checked into the hotel, that feeling hit me again. I couldn't shake the thought of Laura, alone in that big house. It wasn't like I didn't trust her to take care of herself. But you know when something just feels off? It was like that, a nagging little itch at the back of my mind. I grabbed my phone and dialed her number, hearing the familiar rings before she picked up. "Hey, you made it okay?" Laura's voice was calm, like nothing was bothering her. Maybe I really was just imagining things. "Yeah, everything's fine. How about you? Everything good back home?" "Same old," she said. "Nothing exciting. I had dinner, watched some TV. You know, the usual." "You sure?" I asked, trying to mask my concern. "No weird noises or anything like that?" I half laughed, trying to lighten the mood. She chuckled softly. "Nothing like that. Just me and my wine. I'm telling you, Jake, you worry too much." "Maybe," I admitted, but something still didn't sit right. I didn't know if it was the distance or just being away from her for so long, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to happen. Still, I wasn't about to let her know that. "Well, just keep the doors locked, okay?" "Always do," she replied, her tone playful. "You get some sleep. Don't stay up all night worrying about me." Yeah, I'll try. Talk to you tomorrow?" "Of course," she said, her voice softening. "I love you. I love you too," I said, before we hung up. I stared at my phone for a minute after the call ended, feeling the weight of the silence around me. Everything was fine, I told myself. She was fine, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't. That first night away should have been like any other. I was lying in the stiff hotel bed, trying to find a comfortable spot, my mind still stuck on work. You know how it goes, thinking about what you said in meetings, wondering if you sent the right emails, all the boring stuff that keeps you up. But tonight, it wasn't just work weighing on me. Every few minutes, my thoughts drifted back to Laura. I grabbed my phone, checking the time. It was late, but not too late to call her again. We talked earlier, and she seemed fine, maybe a little tired, but fine. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling something wasn't quite right. I wasn't usually this paranoid when I left home. I didn't want to bother her, though. So I figured I'd wait until morning to check in. I finally managed to fall asleep, but it didn't last long. A few hours later, I was jolted awake by my phone buzzing on the nightstand. My heart immediately started racing. I grabbed it, fumbling to see the screen in the dark. It was Laura. The clock said it was just after 2 a.m. Why was she calling at this hour? "Laura," I answered, my voice thick with sleep and worry. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, but she didn't say anything right away. "Laura," I repeated, sitting up in bed, now fully awake. "What's going on?" I heard something," she finally said, her voice shaky, almost whispering. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? Like what? I don't know, she replied, her voice barely holding together. It was late, and I was already in bed. I heard footsteps, like someone was walking down the hallway. I tried to keep my tone calm. Are you sure it wasn't just the house? You know how old places creak sometimes? It wasn't the house, Jake, she said, a little more firmly this time. It sounded like someone was there, like they were trying to be quiet. I thought maybe it was the wind or something outside, but I swear the sound came from inside. I could feel my pulse quicken. I hated that I wasn't there, hated that she was alone and scared. But I had to keep it together for her sake. Did you check the doors? Maybe something got in through the garage. Or I checked everything. She cut me off, clearly frustrated. Everything's locked. There's no way anyone could have gotten in, but I don't know, Jake. It felt like someone was walking just outside the bedroom. I could tell she was trying not to let the fear take over, but it was creeping into her voice. And now it was creeping into me too. Look, just stay in the bedroom, all right? Lock the door if you need to. I'm sure it's nothing. Maybe a tree branch hit the house, or something fell over in the kitchen. But don't take any chances. You got the alarm on, right? Yeah, it's on, she said, sounding a little more reassured. I'll be fine. I'm probably just hearing things. It's late, and I've been watching too many crime shows. I forced a laugh, trying to ease the tension. See? That's probably it. Your mind's just playing tricks on you. She laughed a little too, but it was weak, hollow. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I guess I got freaked out being here alone. Do you want me to come back? I asked, even though I knew I couldn't. The work trip was too important, and I was hours away. But in that moment, I would have dropped everything to be there with her if she asked. No, she replied quickly. I'll be fine. I don't want you to ruin your trip over this. I just needed to hear your voice. I felt a bit of the tension leave my chest. All right, but if you hear anything else, anything at all, you call me, okay? Even if it's nothing. I don't care what time it is. Okay, she said, her voice softer now, more tired. I'll call. I promise. We stayed on the line for a few more minutes, neither of us saying much, just breathing. It was like neither of us wanted to be the first to hang up. But eventually, Laura spoke up. Go back to sleep, Jake, she said. You've got work in the morning? I'll try, I said, though I knew sleep wouldn't come easy after that. I love you. I love you too, she whispered. Good night. I waited until she hung up before I finally set the phone down. I lay back in bed, staring up at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the hotel's air conditioning. My mind was spinning. I kept replaying what she'd said about the footsteps, trying to make sense of it. The logical part of me knew it had to be nothing. The house was secure, the alarm was set, and we lived in a safe neighborhood. It was probably just her mind playing tricks on her, like she said. Still, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. I kept thinking back to the way she'd sounded on the phone, scared, unsure, like something wasn't quite right. But there was nothing I could do from here except wait for morning and hope that when I called her again, she'd laugh about the whole thing, say it was just her imagination. The second night wasn't any better. In fact, it was worse. I was back in my hotel room after a long day of meetings, trying to relax, but I couldn't get comfortable. My mind kept drifting back to Laura and the call from the night before. I kept thinking about the way her voice had trembled, how certain she was that she'd heard something inside the house. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, just her nerves playing tricks on her. But deep down, I wasn't so sure. I hadn't heard from her all day, and I told myself that was a good sign. She would have called if something was wrong. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. It was around 10 p.m. when I decided to call her. The phone rang a few times before she picked up, and when she did, her voice sounded distant, like she wasn't really there. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. How's it going? There was a pause on the other end before she finally answered. Jake, I think someone's been in the house. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. What do you mean? What happened? I don't know, she said, her voice shaky. I went to bed early tonight, and I woke up to this weird noise. It sounded like something was tapping on the window in the living room. But when I got up to check, there was nothing there. My heart started racing. Did you check outside? Maybe it was a tree branch or something hitting the glass. I looked outside. She replied, her voice strained. There's nothing near the window. No branches, no wind. And then she trailed off. And then what? I heard footsteps again, like last night, but this time they were closer, like they were right outside my bedroom door. I felt my whole body tense up. Laura, are you sure? Did you check the doors? Maybe it's... I checked everything, she snapped, clearly frustrated. All the doors are locked. The windows are locked. There's no way anyone could have gotten in, but Jake, I'm telling you, it sounded like someone was walking inside the house. I could hear the panic rising in her voice, and it made my stomach churn. I hated that I wasn't there, that I couldn't just walk into the other room and check things out for myself. Instead, I was stuck in a hotel room, hundreds of miles away, trying to keep her calm over the phone. Okay, listen, I said, trying to sound as calm as I could. It's probably just the house settling, right? It's an old place, and you're there alone. Your mind might be playing tricks on you. She didn't answer right away, and when she finally spoke again, her voice was softer, almost defeated. I don't think that's a Jake. I feel like someone's watching me. That sent a shiver down my spine. What do you mean? I don't know how to explain it. It's just this feeling I've had since you left. Like I'm not alone in the house. Even when I'm sitting on the couch or lying in bed, I feel like there's someone else here, watching me. It sounds crazy, I know, but it doesn't sound crazy, I interrupted, trying to soothe her. It doesn't. You're just stressed, and it's making everything feel worse than it is. But you're safe. Okay. You've got the alarm set, the doors are locked, and I'll be home in a few days. She sighed, and I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. I know, but I can't shake it. It's just this feeling, Jake. It's so strong. I didn't know what to say. What could I say? I was too far away to help her, and every logical part of me wanted to believe that it really was just her imagination. But the other part of me, the part that was hearing the fear in her voice, wasn't so sure. Do you want me to come home early? I offered, knowing it wasn't really possible, but wanting to give her some sense of comfort. No, she said quickly, though she didn't sound convincing. You've only got a few more days. I can handle it. You sure? I asked, still feeling uneasy. Yeah, I'll be fine, she said, but her voice was so hollow, it was hard to believe her. I just needed to hear your voice. It helps. I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. All right, well, if anything happens, anything at all, you call me, okay? Even if it's the middle of the night. I will, she promised, though I could hear the fear still lingering in her tone. I love you, Jake. I love you too, I said, my heart heavy. I'll talk to you tomorrow. We hung up, but I didn't feel any better. I just sat there, staring at my phone, trying to shake the dread that had settled in my chest. What if something was really wrong? What if someone was messing with her, or worse? I knew I should have gone back to bed, tried to get some sleep, but I couldn't. I just kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head. The footsteps, the noise at the window, the feeling of being watched. It all sounded like something out of a bad movie, but this was real. This was Laura, and she was scared. I didn't want to let myself think the worst, but it was hard not to. I told myself that everything would be fine in the morning, that she was just tired and spooked from being alone. But as I lay there in the dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. Something I couldn't stop, even if I was there. And that thought kept me wide awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for a phone call I hoped would never come. By the time the third night rolled around, I was a wreck. I hadn't slept much since Laura's call the previous night, and the nagging feeling that something was wrong just wouldn't let up. All day, I kept checking my phone, waiting for her to call, waiting for a message. Nothing. I told myself that no news was good news, that she was probably just busy, but deep down, I knew better. It was almost 11 p.m. when I finally caved and called her. The phone rang twice before she answered. This time, her voice was even shakier than the night before. Jake, something's seriously wrong, she said, skipping the usual greetings. My stomach twisted. What happened? I saw something, she whispered, her voice trembling. In the hallway. I sat up straight in bed, my heart racing. What do you mean? What did you see? I don't know exactly. I was in the kitchen, and I turned around. For just a second, I saw a shadow. It was like a person, standing in the hallway, right outside the bedroom. My blood went cold. A person? Laura? Are you sure? I'm not crazy, Jake, she said, her voice breaking. I saw it. It was there. It moved past the door, and when I went to check, there was no one. I rubbed my forehead, trying to stay calm. Did you check the house again? Maybe it was a trick of the light or... I checked everything, she interrupted, her voice tight with frustration and fear. I looked in every room. There's no one here, but I swear, Jake, I saw something. I could hear the panic in her voice, and it was making my own heart race. I hated that I was still so far away that I couldn't be there to reassure her in person. Couldn't check the house myself. All right, listen to me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You've got all the doors locked, right? Yes. The alarm is set? Yes, I've checked it 3 times. Okay, I said, forcing calm into my voice even though I felt anything but calm. You're safe. There's no way anyone could have gotten in. It must have been a shadow or something outside. Maybe a tree moved in the wind, and it cast a weird shadow in the hallway. I thought that too, but she hesitated, her voice growing even softer. I don't think it was outside, Jake. It was inside. It felt close. That last word hit me hard. Close. I could picture her standing there, staring down that dark hallway, alone in the house, feeling like something was creeping up on her. My pulse quickened, and for the first time, I seriously considered packing up and driving home, even if it meant missing the rest of my work trip. Laura, I'm coming home, I said, not even waiting for her response. No, don't, she said quickly, though her voice trembled. You're almost done with the trip. It's probably nothing, and I don't want you to leave just because I'm losing my mind over shadows. You're not losing your mind, I said firmly, and I don't care about the trip. If you're not feeling safe, I'm coming home. She paused, and I could hear her take a shaky breath. I'll be fine, she said, but the way she said it didn't convince either of us. You're coming back in a few days, right? I'll just stay in the bedroom tonight and keep the door locked. I don't like the idea of you feeling scared in the house, Laura. Maybe you should call the police, just to be safe. She let out a weak laugh. And tell them what? That I saw a shadow? They'll think I'm paranoid. There's no sign of a break-in. It's not like I can prove anything. They'll probably just tell me it was my imagination. I clenched my jaw, hating how helpless I felt. Just promise me you'll keep the bedroom door locked. If you hear anything, anything, you call me, okay? I will, she said quietly. I could tell she was exhausted, mentally and physically drained from the fear and lack of sleep. I wanted to make it better, to take away that fear, but I couldn't. I was stuck on the other end of a phone call, and all I could do was try to calm her down from a distance. Okay, I said, trying to sound reassuring. Get some rest. I'll call you first thing in the morning. Thanks, Jake, she whispered. I love you. I love you too, I said, though the words felt hollow, like they weren't enough to make her feel safe. Good night, she said softly, and then the line went dead. I set the phone down on the nightstand and stared at it for a long time, feeling my heart still pounding in my chest. She was scared, and I hated that I wasn't there. I kept thinking about that shadow she'd seen, how certain she was that it wasn't just her imagination. Maybe I was being too dismissive. Maybe she really had seen something. But what? How could someone be in the house without triggering the alarm? I kept replaying the conversation over and over in my head, but no matter how I looked at it, it didn't make sense. Laura was smart. She wasn't the type to jump at shadows. If she said she saw something, then she probably did. But if there was no one in the house, then what the hell was going on? I tried to tell myself that everything would be fine in the morning, that she would wake up and realize it was all just her nerves. But as I lay there in the dark, listening to the quiet hum of the hotel's air conditioning, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were getting worse. That whatever was happening at home was more than just Laura being spooked by the dark. And the worst part was I had no idea what to do about it. The next day, everything felt off. I had expected to wake up to a message or at least a missed call from Laura. But there was nothing. No text, no voicemail. My phone was silent. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was catching up on sleep after the restless nights, or maybe her phone had died. Still, something gnawed at me. It wasn't like her to not check in, especially after everything that had happened. I called her. The phone rang, and then went to voicemail. Hey Laura, it's me. Just checking in. Call me back when you get this. I put the phone down, feeling the unease creep back in. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she was out running errands or trying to keep herself distracted. I tried to keep calm, but every minute that passed without hearing from her made me more anxious. By the afternoon, I was checking my phone constantly, waiting for some kind of response. Each time it rang, I jumped, only to be disappointed when it wasn't her. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't think about anything else but the eerie silence on the other end. Something was wrong. I could feel it. It wasn't until almost midnight that my phone buzzed in my hand, breaking the tension that had been building all day. It was her. Laura. I answered immediately, my voice a little too loud. Where the hell have you been? I've been calling you all day. For a moment, there was no response, just silence. Then, I heard her take a shaky breath. Jake, her voice was barely above a whisper, so soft I almost didn't catch it. Laura, what's going on? I asked, my concern now full-blown panic. Why didn't you answer your phone? I don't know, she stammered, sounding confused. I woke up in the basement. I don't remember going down there. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. What do you mean the basement? Why were you in the basement? I don't know, she said again, her voice trembling. I don't remember going down there. I just woke up and I was lying on the floor. My phone was next to me. I sat up straight, my heart pounding in my chest. Laura, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you go down there in the middle of the night? I didn't choose to go down there, Jake. She snapped, frustration mixing with her fear. I don't remember. 1 minute, I was in bed, and the next thing I know, I'm on the basement floor. It's like I blacked out or something. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what she was saying. It didn't add up. How could she just end up in the basement without any memory of going there? And why hadn't she called me sooner? Are you okay now? I asked, trying to stay calm, even though my thoughts were spiraling. Did you hurt yourself? Did anyone else come into the house? I don't know, she whispered, and I could hear the fear creeping back into her voice. The doors, they're locked from the outside. What? I felt my blood run cold. What do you mean, locked from the outside? How is that even possible? I don't know, she cried. I try to get out, but the doors won't open. It's like someone locked me in. My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of what she was saying. I could hear her pacing now, her voice growing more frantic. Jake, I'm scared, she said, and that was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I'm coming home, I said, already grabbing my keys and shoving my things into my suitcase. No, don't, she said, her voice shaking. It's too late, and I don't want you driving all night. Laura, I don't care. Something's not right. I'm not staying here while you're trapped in that house. I'll be there in a few hours. I could hear her trying to hold back tears. Okay, just hurry. I'm leaving right now, I said, heading for the door. Stay on the phone with me, all right? I'll stay on the line while I drive. But then the line cut off. Laura? Laura, nothing. Silence again. I tried calling her back, but it went straight to voicemail. My heart was pounding so hard, I could feel it in my throat. I raced down to my car, throwing my bag in the back seat as I dialed her number over and over, praying that she would answer, but there was nothing. It was like she had disappeared. I couldn't stand it anymore. I needed to get home, and I needed to get there fast. As I sped down the highway, every possible scenario ran through my mind. What if someone had been in the house the whole time? What if she wasn't just imagining the footsteps and the shadow? What if someone had been messing with her, and I hadn't believed her? The guilt hit me like a tidal wave. I should have come home sooner. I should have listened to her. I kept trying her phone, but it was no use. Each time, it went straight to voicemail. The hours dragged on, and all I could think about was Laura alone in that house, terrified, and I wasn't there to protect her. The closer I got, the more dread filled my chest. Something was waiting for me at home. I could feel it. The worst part was I had no idea what it was or how to stop it. It was nearly 4 a.m. when I finally pulled into the driveway. The house loomed in front of me, dark and quiet, the way it always did at night. But this time something felt different. The air was heavier, like the whole place was holding its breath. My heart was pounding as I stepped out of the car, the gravel crunching under my shoes, sounding unnaturally loud in the stillness of the night. I didn't even grab my suitcase. All I could think about was Laura. The porch light wasn't on. That was the first thing that set me on edge. She always left it on for me when I came home late. I tried to shake it off as I rushed to the front door, fumbling with my keys. When I finally unlocked it and pushed the door open, I called out for her. Laura, no answer. I stepped inside, and the house felt wrong. It wasn't just quiet. It was the kind of silence that pressed down on you like the walls themselves were listening. Every instinct in me was screaming that something was off, but I couldn't figure out what. "Laura!" I shouted again, louder this time, my voice echoing through the empty rooms. Still nothing. I checked the living room, the kitchen. Everything looked normal, like she had just stepped out for a minute. The dishes were in the sink, the TV remote on the couch, but there was no sign of her. The air was cold, and it felt like every shadow in the house was watching me. I moved down the hallway, my footsteps muffled on the carpet, trying to keep calm even though my heart was pounding in my chest. When I got to the bedroom, I froze. The door was wide open, but the bed was made, the blankets perfectly folded as if no one had slept there. My stomach twisted. She had said she was in the bedroom when she heard the noises. Where the hell was she now? I walked over to the closet, yanking the door open, half expecting to see someone hiding inside, but there was nothing. Just Laura's clothes hanging there in neat rows. Everything looked untouched. Perfect. Too perfect. That's when I remembered the basement. She said she had woken up in the basement, that she didn't remember going down there. My pulse quickened, and I felt a knot of fear tighten in my chest. I turned on my heel and made my way to the basement door at the far end of the hallway. The door was slightly ajar, and a chill ran down my spine as I pushed it open. "Laura!" I called out, my voice trembling. The basement stairs stretched out in front of me, disappearing into the darkness below. I didn't want to go down there. Every fiber of my being was telling me to turn around, get out of the house, and call the police. But I couldn't leave her. Not like this. I took a deep breath and started down the stairs, one slow step at a time, the old wood creaking under my weight. The further I went, the colder the air became, like the basement had been frozen over. I reached the bottom, the dim light from the bulb above casting long, flickering shadows on the concrete floor. My breath was coming in short, shallow bursts as I scanned the room. And then I saw her. Laura was sitting on the floor in the far corner of the basement, her back against the wall, staring straight ahead. She didn't even flinch when I called her name again. Her eyes were wide, almost vacant, and her face was pale as a sheet. "Laura!" I rushed over to her, dropping to my knees in front of her. "Laura, what the hell happened? Are you okay?" She blinked slowly, like she was just waking up from a dream. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was barely above a whisper. "Jake, he's still here." I felt my blood turn to ice. "Who's still here? What are you talking about?" She looked past me, her gaze fixed on the shadows behind me. I turned, but there was no one there. Just the basement, empty and quiet, like it had always been. "Laura, there's no one here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're safe. I'm here now." Her eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head, her hands trembling. "No, you don't understand. He's here. He's been here the whole time." I grabbed her shoulders gently, trying to bring her back to reality. "Laura, listen to me. There's no one else in this house. You're just scared, okay? We'll get out of here. We'll go somewhere safe, and..." She cut me off, her voice growing frantic. "It's not you, Jake. It's him. The man who looks like you." My heart skipped a beat, and I stared at her, confused. "What are you talking about? There's no man who looks like me." Her breath came in ragged gasps as she clutched at my arm. "He came after you left. At first, I thought I was seeing things, but every night he was there, watching me, standing in the hallway. I tried to tell you, but he wouldn't let me." I felt a chill run through me as I looked around the basement again, suddenly feeling like we weren't alone after all. This doesn't make any sense, Laura," I whispered, my voice shaking. But before I could say anything else, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from above us, right in the hallway. My heart nearly stopped. I turned to face the stairs, my mind spinning. Laura was trembling, her hand gripping mine so tightly it hurt. The footsteps stopped, and the house went silent again. For a long moment, neither of us moved, barely even breathed. And then, from the top of the stairs, I heard a voice. My own voice. "Laura," it called, mimicking the way I'd been calling her name all night. I felt my blood freeze in my veins. The voice was identical to mine, but it wasn't me. Laura squeezed my hand, her voice shaking. "He's here?" I stood up slowly, my legs trembling as I backed away from the stairs, pulling Laura with me. The house groaned above us, and for the first time, I realized what Laura had been saying all along. We weren't alone.